And if you guys would be so kind as to introduce yourselves for me.
Sure. My name is Patrick Gilmore. I am the studio head at Amazon Games Orange County, where we're building New World.
I'm John Lamberto. I'm the lead game systems designer on New World.
Scott Lane, game director, New World.
And I'm Jason, your least favorite part of MMOHuts' YouTube channel. I'm not James Blonde, but we'll make it work. Okay, my first question, New World is, in my estimation, probably the biggest game to come out of Amazon Game Studio, and it's kind of an ambitious project. What led the team to working on this style of sandbox MMO?
That's a great question. First of all, thank you. Yeah, it is an ambitious product, and we're super grateful to have the opportunity to work on it. It really started with the games that we were playing at the time, playing survival crafting, playing MMOs, playing action RPGs, and kind of this epiphany that there was sort of a shared set of features that we thought harmonized really well into a very focused game that sat in that sandbox MMO space. So that was kind of the genesis. It was like, what's the combination of all these things that we really want to play?
Why don't we just put all this stuff together?
Well, but it's not about putting a ton of different stuff. It's really about loving certain aspects of these different genres, and then realizing that they kind of harmonize together, and that they can be a very focused product can emerge from it.
And one of the things that is interesting on that note is that the players pretty much run the world, from the marketplace to the justice system, from what I understand, from what I was reading. I think that's kind of dangerous.
You said justice system. I love that. Like players running the justice system.
Yeah, they kill people who are doing awful things.
Yeah, they do.
That's street justice.
That is justice. Love it.
Are you particularly worried about like huge groups of players coming together and abusing the systems in play, sort of constantly griefing or?
So the thing we really prize, I think you kind of said it, but just to say it again, it's the sandbox is all about player freedom. It's not about locking you into sort of a guided tour. It's about being able to do anything, including being a criminal if you want, or administering justice if that's what you want to do.
Being the Punisher.
As far as the concern that players will group together, I think it's fair to say we hope things like that happen, because it's that unpredictability of a game where players have that much freedom can produce consequences. It can produce emergent sort of fun like that. What I can promise you is for everything like that happens, there will be a reactive force that then, like the game will always sort of tend toward this equilibrium, I think. And so for the crimes, it's rare for crimes to go unpunished in New World, I think.
As a follow-up to that, do you have any plans to address like low population play? In particular, I mean, will there be systems in place for when, say, the servers have less than ideal population?
Well, one of the great things about the game is it's fun just to explore, and it's this great big world that is by design intended to feel like this huge virgin place. We don't have immediate plans to kind of compensate with systems for low player population, but there's a ton to do in the game regardless of how many players happen to be online.
So you'll still have something to do anyway.
You will, and the other thing is, I have to say, like in terms of the behavior that we've seen, like there's a lot of players who spend a lot of time in the game, and I don't think it's ever going to feel super empty.
Okay. And sandbox games like this, or MMOs like this, tend to not have an end game to look forward to. Will New World have any of the trappings of the traditional MMO dungeon raid content?
Yeah, that's a great question. I want to let Scott take that question.
And hopefully Colton can correct my mistakes as well.
He can.
All right. Well, yeah, it starts with the large-scale PvP endgame battles, which I think are a driving force in the endgame, so the conquest of taking over the world. In a sandbox like this, the endgame is really what players define it to be. So you as a player, you might want to be the best crafter on the server. That's your endgame. It might be, Patrick might want to be the best blacksmith on the server, and I'm going to go have him make my arm, so that's his endgame. We are implementing more group PvE. Raid is probably not going to come anytime soon because, again, the focus is on the massive scale battles and the sandbox gameplay for us.
All right, and since this is a pretty open sort of open world, can players be killed at any point in time? We were talking about that earlier, so maybe we should talk about that the criminal button, if you will.
Yes. So there's a couple different levels to talk about that, like where we are with criminality right now, and kind of and potentially the sort of the impact of that system and how we think about kind of future potential. Yes, players can be killed at any time. Players who murder other players become criminals, and they get tagged in the game as criminals. The impact of being a criminal is that when you're just a normal player who's not a criminal, and if you get killed, you don't drop any of the gear that you have equipped. So all of that high tier gear that you have is safe from a marauder. If you're a criminal and you're killed by a non-criminal, you drop everything. So all that high tier gear you have, sorry. Like that's the penalty.
That's very high risk, high reward.
So the criminal lifestyle, like that's what we find. It's like some people who play, they recognize that criminal lifestyle is high risk, and they think of it as a badge of honor. There's people who post on the forums, sentence served, with what their crimes were and how long they survived as a criminal. Like they
until they were killed.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, we like part of what makes the sandbox have value is this kind of mortal drama and this kind of ongoing tension that you're never 100% safe, and that venturing out into the world carries kind of risk and reward with it, and the criminals in the world are part of that. So there's a balancing act you have to do there, but man, they contribute just a lot of the emotional weight to the experience.
Can I just add a little? There are safe zones, sanctuary areas. You do have places if you want to go focus on your craft that you can
do it safely.
If you're not a criminal.
Yeah, you went into an outpost today and you probably saw the sanctuary icon come up. But you can't be harmed
if you're not a criminal.
As long as you're not
If
you are a criminal, that's the worst place you can.
No, it's awesome. You're in there and a criminal runs in. Everybody stops. Get them because
none of them can be harmed.
New World is going to feature a classless system, which is always sort of an interesting concept in an MMO. Can you provide a general overview of how character progression will work in this system?
Sure. There's two primary kind of player-defining systems. There's your trade skills, and then there's your player attributes. Base attributes are things like strength, endurance, dexterity that impact your ability in a variety of different situations, from how rapidly you can log or how much you can carry to combat situations, like how good you are with a great axe or a ranged weapon. And then trade skills are like blacksmithing and outfitting, like what types of things can you craft and where are you likely to produce the very best results. So that's kind of the bedrock of the system. But Scott, you want to expand on it?
Trying to think of how I would expand. So how I think about it is the attributes, again, are the things you do, and the trade skills are the crafts you want to be great at. And it goes beyond just crafting, though. It's harvesting skills, camping. If you want to live off the land, you could be a wilderness person, and your camp can tier up. You can make better gear out of your camp. But John, you actually designed the system. Is there anything you want to add?
Yeah. So your character attributes are they're very fluid, as in you can put points into any attributes that you feel like putting them into to see how your character will develop in that way and what they'll get better at. Ultimately, your character attributes are a measure of your martial prowess in the game, how strong you are, how tough you are, how knowledgeable you are about magic. And your trade skills are very much the opposite of those things. They're how skilled of a craftsman you are, how skilled of a gatherer you are, or like Scott said, how skilled you are at wilderness survival. Critically important, though, to the system is that the trade skills are not something that you have to grind out. They're something that you earn points in as you progress your character. So as you level your character, you'll get XP for doing just about anything in the game. And eventually you'll be able to say, well, I'm at this level, and I think that makes me a better blacksmith.
This feeds back into the carve your destiny. This allows you to build the character that you want to build, to play the game the way you want to play the game, and contribute to either your company or just your experience your own way in the sandbox.
Yeah. It's not D&D where you roll your stats up front. You invest in them over time to grow the way you want to grow your player.
New World sort of reminds me of another MMO, a Darkfall. And I was curious if you guys were familiar with it, and if so, did you learn any lessons from it?
John?
He's our Darkfall expert.
I had a feeling there would be one.
So we have more than one. We have more than one Darkfall fan on the team who very much enjoyed the idea of the game and kind of what it was and what it was evolving into. To say that we learned from it is a little bit of an understatement, because much like the survival crafting games and the other MMOs that we were playing at the time and the action RPGs that we were playing, Darkfall is similarly a melding of those ideas, and we realized that we discussed it on the design team, and we've had a lot of candid discussions on the team about things about that game we really liked, and things about that game we thought we could expand or improve upon, or things about that game that we didn't like at all and we thought we would leave on the table.
Maybe we should just leave some of it alone.
Yeah. I think it's like a lot of different games, and we took inspiration from a variety of different places, but then really focused on like, okay, what is the right thing for this game?
Yeah.
In New World, we had this core idea of the frontier being this kind of boundary between the known world and the unknown world, and then with that, the idea that with the back-end technology and very high player population, we didn't want a game that sort of degenerated into anarchy. Like it's not the zombie apocalypse, right? It's not like
You don't want Ultima Online.
it's like, so it's about providing players structure so they can sort of build up and form civilization and form player organizations in the context. And so with those guiding principles, those were sort of the razors that we used to decide what worked and what didn't work.
And I have one tiny more quick one. Since, Amazon owns Twitch, I have to ask, will there be Twitch integration, or will Twitch Prime come into play in some way?
Oh, those are great questions. Well, we're not talking specifically about that stuff. We have worked really closely with Twitch, and we've worked really closely with a bunch of content creators. And so we are going to be doing integrations. The integrations are really focused on content creators being able to identify themselves in game and coordinate other players and kind of leverage their platform to create unique types of context, all in fiction, all in the context of New World. So pretty stoked about the initial offerings we're going to have there.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah.